Hi everyone, my name is Henrik, Stamm Kristensen. I'm the founder of Blendhub Chemometric Brain, did 5 food tech companies and a community platform, been active the last 35 years in the food industry. It's a pleasure for me to be here today because I want to share with you some of the most pressing problems in the world's food supply chain today. And as we all know, and especially here during COVID, the current supply chain models are completely obsolete and inefficient. We have had a situation for the last many years where we have constantly, at a global level, decreased the volume of proteins that we have been using from around 30,000 different species and sources around 100 years ago to today actually having only around 12 supporting 75% of what we eat. The future of food, we are all aware that we need to change. We have planetary issues, we have issues around monocultures, we have issues around biodiversity. We have so many issues that needs to be solved. And of course, again, when we only have, let's say, been developing 12 species over the last many years, in the end, how do we actually go back to a situation where we are permitting localized economies, localized people around the world to start to grow and to facilitate the biodiversity by planting new species and thereby move what we eat back to 30,000 or even more different species that we had hundreds of years ago. So, of course, the challenge is that in the last 100 years, we all know that the situation around food and nutrition have been moved more and more towards complicated recipes. And at the same time, the trust factor around these recipes and these ingredients that are coming, let's say, as monocultures from all over the world, have been put into a long and extensive amount of different brands, where these brands are offering, let's say, complex recipes under their brand names. So we have actually created a trust to brands. We have created a trust to, let's say, that the big brands or the well-known brands are actually standing in instead of really having a trust to what are the ingredients and what is really inside. So the question for me, let's say, to any one of you and to any consumer on earth is right now that we are questioning ourselves where we want to eat in the future. The other thing that is happening is that there are so many different areas and sources of how to select our food. So in a certain way, my question when I start looking at the entire agri-food value chain is who to cook your meal. Because as we said before, of course, everyone, we still remember from back in time when we had our mother or our grandmother and the secret recipe of granny of this bread or this ingredient. We started cooking, we started playing with ingredients. We also know, all of us, that when we sit in our kitchens at home at Saturday night and we go on to Google and we start Googling recipes, there are billions of recipes online. But every time we go down and we start to cook one thing or one recipe, there's always 4 or 5 ingredients that are missing. And these ingredients, of course, are specialty ingredients that some people have found in their local communities. And thereby, it is so difficult to actually be able to get a hand on this recipe because the ingredients are not really available to us. And that means that we cannot replicate any recipe. And as you see in the middle, what we have done is that, of course, we have replicated our way of living, going to restaurants or having fast food, let's say, in machines. Or even today, we have robotization of entire, let's say, value chains where you have either dark kitchens or you have completely robotized pizza chains where you're going into a place. And again, you have to, of course, adapt, or you want to, let's say, eat a dish that in the end you are putting into your mouth, even prepared by a robot, where you are not really aware neither where the ingredients are coming from, neither what are the specific ingredients. And of course, you take your trust to, let's say, who has cooked this meal. And this is why, of course, you have an enormous amount of selection possibilities that is in your hand to find out where you trust most. The other thing that is increasingly important, and of course, we have been living with that on the other side, that are the brands, the food brands, where we know that a lot of, let's say, these food brands have been developed over the last 100 years. My big question when I look at the agri-food value chain and I go to a supermarket is actually playing with a lot of new technologies. The next generation, are they really adapting these brands, and why are these brands eventually becoming irrelevant when we start digitizing the food quality and the entire agri-food value chain? And one thing that I've been surprised about many times is that when you look at these big food brands that are, let's say, our well-known ones, and you look beyond them, you see that they have thousands of brands registered. And that is, again, of course, because that we know, as I saw before, and where we select meat. When we go to the supermarket and we buy something, these instructions has, of course, been the only way in a not digitized world that could actually, let's say, put our trust on someone or somebody, in this case, a brand, who would give us this, let's say, security that we knew what we put into our mouth. The big problem here is that only 20% of the world's food production is actually these brands, because the 80% remaining producers of the world's food are actually farmers and SMEs that have not been able to move beyond their local or their regional areas because that they did not have a brand, and thereby being unknown, let's say, to the big world, they have not been able to consolidate their business models beyond these areas where they have been operating. So what will happen now when we really start looking at digitizing food qualities and, for example, digitizing small products coming from very specific parts of the world, where actually we will be able to look at how this food product was not only produced and where it was produced, but actually what if we are able to digitize the food quality that actually is the product in itself using new technologies. And that takes me to the last, let's say, slide that is really putting the whole thing that I just talked about into perspective. So what I have been doing over the last 10 years, participating in the creation of recipes with ingredients, is that because that we were deploying localized food production hubs around in the world, as you can see in the middle, you know, this whole replication model around, for example, localizing food production in different areas of the world actually forced us to think in a completely different way. So we started looking at technology and said, hey, if we take our factory to India, or we take it to Colombia or Mexico or Thailand, of course, what makes sense is no longer shipping ingredients up to our, what we call the static production, or the old-fashioned way that I see food production, that is centralized production in specific areas of the world. Whereas you all know, these big brands we just saw in the area of industrialization have been making huge factories in a certain part of the world, meaning that all the ingredients were shipped from around the world to these factories, and then the food product was produced and then shipped back again. So one of the things that I've been participating in myself under my own company structures is that how do we actually first create a localized food production, so in a relatively short period of time, we can deploy this food production anywhere in the world. For everyone's easy understanding, it's a little bit the philosophy of the smartphone or the McDonald's model or the Coca-Cola bottling model or even the Nespresso model, where you suddenly can put a machine into your house and create barista coffees for yourself. So back in 2011, we deployed our first localized production food hub in India. And one of the things we found ourselves with, that suddenly we had the whole Indian support of the entire Indian supply chain that suddenly gave us a possibility to create recipes with Indian ingredients, actually the same recipes that, of course, we had sold from our Spanish factory in the past. So the whole situation now changed for us and said, listen, how do we actually compare the Indian ingredients to the ones that we had on our Spanish factory before? So we started using a well-known old technology that is near-infrared spectroscopy that has been around for 30 years. And we say, how is this technology used until today? You know, And we were looking at, for example, the dairy industry who have used near-infrared spectroscopy in terms of measuring protein or humidity in their different milk products from the farmer to the industry and to the consumer. So I said to my people, I said, why don't we look at this technology in a different way? And instead of using quantitative, that is a measurement of the ingredients inside or the protein inside, why don't we use another technology that can be put on the same, let's say, near infrared, and that is qualitative. So this is basically a fingerprint technology. So as you see here, for example, in this supply chain, actually this technology over the last 10 years have permitted us to digitize around 125,000 different products, specters, as we call it. And we have been doing that on multiple different food products. For example, here you have an artiscock that is converted into artiscock powder. That is an ingredient in one of the recipes we are doing in our factory. And by digitizing using near-infrared spectroscopy, this fingerprint of this artiscock powder, we have created safe libraries. So we have created a library, for example, of 50 different samples of this artiscock. So we have created what you call a secure area. So actually, from now on, we can start validating ingredient suppliers of artiscock powder for all the soups you see at the end of the value chain. And not only that, one of the things that we are now doing is that you're probably all hearing about blockchain and other different technologies. That is a security measurement that actually what we see locally is secured. But the digitized fingerprint using qualitative spectroscopy, we today have what you see at the right, a chemometric brain available. So all the ingredients that we have been, let's say, putting into our libraries over the last 10 years is now, since January, publicly available. So we are starting working with, for example, producers like a waste producer, Acre Singularity in Spain, who is actually taking artiscock waste and turn it into powder. We are digitizing how this powder looks like. We are qualifying the powder for recipes. And actually now Acre Singularity can supply, let's say, big supermarket chains or big food producers or small, medium food producers. So the whole value chain is now turned into a safe area where everyone can participate on an open platform and start digitizing and participating with the digitization of these recipes. We can start creating stable recipes. And for us, this is only the first step, because as you can see, and you know, we are moving into augmented reality quality control, where actually we are making a huge amount of work in supporting any kind of either powder, solid, liquid, or gels on this chemometric brain platform. So everyone today are able to upload their ingredients, upload their recipes, and actually find ingredients on a global marketplace that is absolutely unique. And with this, I want to thank you. I think our 15 minutes is up. We have 14 minutes. And I would love to have your questions around it. And as you can see at the right side, this is now open for any startup, any small, medium enterprise can now, with us and with the chemometric brain, as a product opportunity, as a platform, as a software, as a service, actually put your digitized fingerprint of your product into a safe global supply chain where everyone can access both ingredients and recipes coming from any stakeholder, any player in the agri-food value chain anywhere in the world. Thank you very much, and open for any question that you might have. I don't know how it works, but I am here listening. Hi, Paula, any questions? Steve, any question? Maria, any question? Subhas? You're also most welcome, all of you, to text me. I will be very, very happy to answer your questions online as well. So I'm putting in both my email, but I'm also putting in my WhatsApp. So you are very welcome to text me to WhatsApp 24/7. If you give me 6 hours to sleep, maybe I'll be a little bit delayed sometimes, but very happy to answer how you can participate in a global transparent supply chain. So please feel free to connect. Let's do things together. This is a platform model. We are trying to use this whole, let's say, infrastructure model to create a new digitized food quality, but also a digitized food quality certification. So you can start using this in between different stakeholders. So you can start talking to your suppliers of ingredients. You can become a supplier of ingredients. You can talk to your customers, or you can become a customer of a transparent recipe. So really supporting startups, really supporting small, medium enterprises, and of course, supporting all our big food and nutrition industries and beverage industries. So everyone can collaborate on a global platform in the era of digitization. So everyone, and especially, of course, in the soon future, consumers will be able to understand fully what we are putting into our mouth, independently of what is the brand or what is the size of the food producer. I cannot hear any of you, but again, hope you can hear me, and hope you give, let's say, had an idea. We still have, I think, maybe 10 minutes. So if you, okay, I can see Paula here. How do you plan scale up the business? Actually, Paula, we have already been scaling up the business for more than 10 years. We are, since January, a startup. So Chemometric Brain is today an independent company. We are right now fundraising for Chemometric Brain. So we are giving external partners the possibility to participate and accelerate. We have, as I said, we have digitized more than 150 different ingredients. Of course, we have been digitizing under the Blendhub umbrella, mainly powder ingredients. But we are also now working with other platform members. For example, we have a lot of technology centers and even freelance community who are now uploading their libraries. So, for example, right now we are talking to an Austrian company who have been developing libraries around olive oil, that we all know that food fraud is a problem in certain food products. In olive oil, one of them sometimes can be diluted. So we can actually use the Chemometric Brain to make this safe library, for example, let's say of a Spanish olive oil. So if this is diluted, you actually can see it falls out of the safe area, meaning that the scalability of using libraries from third parties. We are also developing, let's say, relationship with tech centers who are uploading libraries of fish oil, fish powders. So everything can actually be created and scanned on the Chemometric Brain. And by the way, we are also collaborating with the hardware producers, different, both static near-infrared spectroscopy, but also handheld. And the prices are just plummeting. So you will have more and more users. Even the small, medium enterprises can now rent that equipment. So this is happening. Anna is asking if we have an English language website. It is actually English language. So the chemometricbrain.io is both in Spanish and English right now. And after our fundraising, we are immediately, let's say, counting on opening office in US, in India, and in the Nordics, because of our relationship to many ingredients producers and many of our traditional customers in these areas that will help us scale. Any other question, any other curiosity, any other issue that you would like to ask about? Subhas? Again, as I said, and maybe just as a final touch, there are multiple collaboration models, because as you can see, I believe in platform strategies, and platform is about creating value for multiple stakeholders. So for example, with these people that we are working on libraries right now, the more libraries that we get uploaded, the more opportunities both food industries and final consumers will have to start really understanding and tracing digitally the entire value chain. That of course will give an enormous opportunity of selling and creating, let's say, food product validation around digitization. So these are the kind of things that of course we want to collaborate. And again, instead of just having a single company, actually creating this platform model where we make the cake bigger and every one of us are able to participate in a value sharing model in different ways. So again, very happy to have this discussion with any of you. Okay, it's 12:01, so I think that we will be about to close. Thank you very much for your nice work. Please use me. Please ask me questions. And as Paula is saying, yes, we are able to validate the entire global supply chain. We are able to help small, medium enterprises, startups, and the big food industries in finding alternatives to the actual supply chains they have right now. We are helping new startups to create new supply chains. For example, in Africa, actually scanning and tagging products in Africa is absolutely amazing. What you will be able to scan before you ship the product. For example, in a case we are working with a Canadian company with dried pineapples and pineapple powder and other things in East and West Africa. So the possibilities with a digitized system are infinite, and everyone can participate. So I think with these words, I think we will take it as done today, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss going forward with all of you. Thank you very much.